Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. Welcome back to Tuesday evening. Welcome back to 8 o'clock-ish on the East Coast and 7 o'clock-ish in Texas. And we are here this evening. Now, normally, and I'm going to kind of jump the gun a little bit here, just a touch. But because I've been watching Twitter and the news all day long, and normally I have this lovely introduction where all kinds of, stringing words together and making beautiful statements and saying something funny. But honestly, tonight, there's nothing funny. There's nothing funny to start this episode with. There's nothing funny to talk about. And I, as an American, I'm in a lot of pain today. And as a veteran, I'm in even more pain today. The fact that there was, and I mean, I'm going to get into this in a second, but the simple fact that there was a multiple hour conversation about something that happened that never should have taken place and that never should have happened. And what we're going to talk about tonight is not okay, and it really shouldn't be a conversation. So now that I've soapboxed for a good minute here, ladies and gentlemen, the hardest working imam that I know, Imam Azhar.
Well, assalamu alaikum. Greetings of peace to all our listeners. As Brother Carl has begun this show tonight in a way that he set the tone basically, and there's no way of overriding that tone, nor is there any way of changing it out. But truth be told, the topic of discussion is disturbing. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but I will say this, and I am not apologetic at all for saying this. It was expected, and much more is expected. Every time you hear someone say, like, there's a new low, I want you all to remember, we haven't even hit low yet. We haven't hit rock bottom yet. This is just the beginning of history playing out again, and I'll tell you why. Because whenever in society, whenever in a time or an era, people succumb to fear of speaking what was right, upholding what was correct, doing what was the best thing, building instead of breaking, joining instead of fractioning, the end result's always the same. For those of you who went to Bible school, Sunday school, Islamic school, or whatever else, let tonight's segment, episode 90 of Raw Islam, serve as an enlightenment for the fact that all those stories you read of Jonah and Noah and Abraham and everyone else, peace be upon all of them, is exactly the trend of humanity. Carl, I have so much to say tonight, but I want you to take the mic back before I do open my mouth more. And I want you to tell us why it's a very, not somber, it's a serious discussion tonight. We're not sad. We need to wake up. And sometimes, a cap full of water when you're sleeping and not waking up can feel like a bucket. Let's let this serve tonight as a bucket of water for what we need to do and walk away with some action plan. But before I do talk about that, I need you to tell us and our listeners how we select the topic and what the topic is this week. Carl?
So I think for once I'm gonna slightly disagree with you and say it's not a somber tone. It's an angry tone for me this evening because I'll get into that in a second. But, ladies and gentlemen, if you are on Twitter, head over to VennNetwork, VennNetwork. Over there on Twitter, you can follow us, and you can take part in our weekly poll. Every week, we post a poll where you, our listeners, our fans, our followers, and everybody else, whoever you are, wherever you are, you get to vote, and you get to take control of what we're going to be talking about on the show, on this episode that we do here, and then a week or two later we publish it to all the places you can find podcasts. iTunes, Google Play, all that good stuff. But so tonight's topic, the poll was posted, and the options were I guess I messed that up. Go back to where you're from, no asylum for the needy, and what's the deal with, which is always my personal favorite. But, ladies and gentlemen, here are your final results for the evening. And as you can see, it was go back to where you came from. That is our winner this evening. That is what you, our fans, you, our followers, and you, our listeners, want to talk about. So there you go. That is our topic of discussion this evening. And so now that I've made the big reveal, before I pass it back to you, I want to say that this is a very angry topic for me.
Sure.
And because I watched from 3 o'clock, 3:30 maybe,
Hmm.
up until moments ago.
Hmm.
So it took 4 hours. It took a 4 hour debate to see if they were going to call something racist and see if they were going to condemn these comments. That's not a debate. That's not a debate. That's disgusting. The fact that you took 4 hours out of everybody's life to say, oh, this might be racist. This might not be racist. Oh, well, the way you're wording your statement is offensive because you can't call somebody directly racist. No, 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 no. Those the tweets were racist. His comments were racist. And the fact that we're debating, and it was even a close vote. It was 4 Republicans and an independent that crossed over to the Democratic side to be able to pass the vote to make it to make it so that the House could condemn what he did as being racist. This is dumb. This is just dumb. We shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be doing this. This shouldn't be a conversation. So, I mean, I'll just keep going for the full for the full 30
No, no.
minutes, but it is Raw Islam with Imam Azhar, so I will pass it over to you. But I just wanted to share that those are my personal issues with this. I mean, besides the obvious that those tweets were racist and they never should have said such a thing.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. You have more right on the show to say what you need to. I applaud the fact that you feel comfortable enough to speak about these things. What does a vote matter in Congress anymore? Let's be real. What does a vote matter? There are so many topics, so many issues which require immediate um, to be addressed immediately in our nation. There are certain situations that have raised past the status of desperation. There's no conversation. We could talk about things, we could deliberate on the floor of the House and the Senate. It's not changing anything, Carl. I'll tell you why. Because what we claim to be racist today has already normalized within the veins of America. And the next generation that may not care as much because they're so caught up in other things, this is just gonna sweep them from under their feet and they won't even know that they've been thrown upside down. You know, we're doing a project here at the mosque, and I'm not gonna expose too much of it. We're doing a strategy. It's a think tank, and I won't go too deep into it. But in this, one of the presentations that one of our members did was there are 4 phases of a generation. There's the baby boomers, the ones who kind of really struggled, um, the recession, the depression, the people who really had it tough. They had to stand outside in lines to get rations of food and bread and whatever else. Then there was Generation X. Generation X are the people who saw their parents and elders and peers struggling, so they really valued whatever they got, right? And then came Generation Y. Generation Y is the one that says, you know what? Why can't I have that? Why can't I do that? Why can't I say that? Because they haven't felt the hardships that 2 generations ago went through. That you can sit here and say, your grandfather used to do this, or we grew up seeing our parents do this. Generation Y doesn't care at all. You know why? Because they haven't smelt what hardship is. And that's what I call the most dangerous moment. You know what happens after that, Carl? Is Generation Z. Generation Z is which destroys everything. And they repeat history. You know why? Because they don't know history. And they destroy themselves only for those to remain to be those baby boomers again, to go back and clean up everyone's mess and to start the world once again. I personally believe we are transitioning from Generation Y to Z now. I could consider my parents and your parents to be the Generation X. I mean, sorry, the baby boomers. We could be Generation X. Our kids are Generation Y. And for those who don't understand the value of money, that you can't just walk into a store and walk out with something because it costs money, and money isn't a card, it's actually things you work for, and then you pay things with that. We're going to destruction. And Carl, we have to now prepare for three things: the normalization of racism in America and the world. And it's going to get ugly, and I'll tell you why. Because once one race points out the other race will stand up and point out the former. And it's just going to get worse. It's going to get ugly. And I can promise you that, Carl. I don't see it changing now. We've gone too far into this. Number two, an indicator, not a number two, but an indicator of why this is getting bad is the upcoming census. For those in the LGBTQ community, let it be known that they are no longer part of the census. The gender issue, sexual orientation, is no longer on the census. It's gone, uh, courtesy of our current administration. So the marginalization of people is what's happening. Normalization of racism, then marginalization of the people who you can step on. I tweeted about this. I don't know if you read it, Carl. Was we are living now in a time where people are identified by either blue or red. No one's talking about Americans. Americans who are blue, Americans who are red. It's like talking about Sunni Shia, not saying Sunni Muslims or Shia Muslims. You're just saying Sunni Shia. The question now becomes which one is Muslim? In the same way, you're talking about blue and red Americans. The question is going to rise now, who are true Americans when both are Americans? Look, you can have conservative values or liberal values. You can follow and align with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. You can be who you want in this country because the Constitution allows you that right. But what's happening is we're marginalizing the scope of who this Constitution fits. You understand? You can take a one size fits all and you can hem it, you can cut it, you can adjust it to fit you. And when you do that, it's no longer one size fits all, Carl. It's now one size that fits you. And that's exactly where America is going. So from normalizing racism to marginalizing communities, we are in for something really bad. And what Trump tweeted, everyone, is what I call the beautiful D word. Not distraction, it's called deflection. We are not looking at the real issues that are happening right now in our country. We have been caught up in the last 3 days, 3 days or more, Carl, because I stopped watching the news. We have been caught up on this so bad. I know they stood up yesterday, the four women, and they talked about whatever they had to say, and Trump tweeted something, and I kind of heard it. I haven't read those tweets. And as you just said, there's a 4 hour debate on the floor now, and there's a vote being done. 3, 4 days are being wasted discussing an issue that we know. Look, the guy's racist, and the people who align with that have the same sentiments. Now, I can call him out the rest of the night, and we all can call him out till the cows come home. But guess what? It's not going to change anything. What we have to do is change the culture on the ground where you are. If there is racism and bigotry where you are, you need to engage with people, not violently. You need to start real conversations and ask, why do we feel that one is inferior to the other? Why do we feel one is better than the other? Why do we feel that one is more American than the other? We have to have these conversations. And if we're not going to have these conversations, the plague of racism and the new ideology, which is narrow mindedness, is only going to take over. And it's going to take over and not everyone's going to survive. And that being said, not every Republican or not every Democrat, not every white, brown, black, or blue or yellow is going to survive. It's going to be nasty because people are already going and resorting to violence and vengeance and hatred out of the people that they think don't agree with them. But at the end of the day, you and your parents could have differences. No one shoots their parents. You could have differences with your wife. You don't kill your wife because of those differences. But that's where America is. We are brothers and sisters one to another. We are a nation of diversity, you like it or not. We're all immigrants. So my response to the fact of going back to where you came from, we all came from America, and yes, we all should go back to where we came from. We should all go back to the values. The country that once upon a time was the melting pot. The country that once upon a time embraced the weak and the poor, the needy, the hungry, the country that gave every person an opportunity and a chance to believe in themselves because the nation believed in them. We should go back to where we came from, and that is the America that once was America, Carl. That's where we should go back. And I agree with that tweet in the context of what I said. Let's go back to the true America, not a racist America, not a bigoted America, not a America of lynching and slavery, not an America of hatred and killing and segregation, an America that stands from New York Statue of Liberty, from the east shores of the Atlantic to the west shores of the Pacific, from Alaska and everything beyond, between and beyond. An America that embraces and grants opportunity. Let's go back to America. I'm ready for that. Carl?
So just one little housekeeping note. I see. So from my vantage point, I can see numbers, and I see y'all out there watching, and this is a fairly heated topic, and we assume that everybody watching and listening is kind of in agreement with us that this is disgusting and those tweets were racist and it shouldn't have been done. I did see one funny joke made about it, and I'll share that in a second. But I am monitoring the chat rooms, so if you're on Periscope or YouTube and you want to make a comment, you want to share your thoughts, please feel free. I am monitoring them, so we can definitely cover that. And I also just noticed, if you're watching us on YouTube on a mobile device, close the chat and then reopen it, because that's what it took to refresh my Android. So, it's just a thing. You could do that. But, yes, we need to get to know our neighbors. We need to get to know one another. We need to get to know each other, because that's how a lot of these differences go away. And honestly, I get angry with the Sunni Shia stuff because it's dumb. We have enough trying to separate us as Muslims that we don't need to invent stuff to separate us further. And we have enough of people trying to separate us with the red and the blue and the religion and the brown skin, and it's too much, and we need to stop. And the only way to end these differences is to really get to know each other. But the one fancy spin that I did see today, which I thought was actually kind of funny, was I believe it was Congresswoman Tlaib. She's from Palestinian descent, if I'm not mistaken. And they said, well, if Trump is really just playing a war of words here, and he told her to go back where she came from, that means he's recognizing Palestine as a state and as an entity. So therefore, he's recognizing Palestine. So good for him. But this shouldn't be a conversation. I just saw something right before we went on the air about some right-wing extremists that they arrested in, I don't remember, it was somewhere in Europe.
Italy.
Was it Italy?
Yes.
Did you see the
missile?
Land-to-air missile.
Yeah.
How does somebody who's extremist in Italy get a land-to-air missile? And what are you going to do with that? Why do you need that? Stop. when all of this started, it was one of the things that really kind of hit me, and I agree with it, was, the whole world had and I know I've said this on here before, we met together as a world and we had a whole war about it, and you don't get to be a Nazi. It's the end of the conversation. And the fact that we're 3 years, 4 years, 16, 17, 3 years into this, 16, 17, 18, no, 4 years into this presidency,
Mm. Third year,
third
yeah, third
year,
year ending, yeah.
and we're still carrying the conversation of, is it okay to be a Nazi? No, 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 it's
Carl,
not.
that's exactly where we are. I'm sorry. It's gonna be okay. I promise you guys. It's gonna be a pedophile tomorrow. Because the guy who just got arrested, that billionaire, I think it's like his third time getting arrested, and I heard that he lives in the same neighborhood as Bill Cosby. And he ran this whole underage sex thing. Let me just tell you one thing: they will not condemn the people who are doing it. Rather, they will say what's wrong with it. They will not condemn the people who are neo-Nazis. They'll say what's wrong with it. I promise you guys, this is my word to you. It's going to become the norm. Remember, Hitler did not come as a thug or a mafia to Europe. He was legitimately elected and came to power. He used the same fear mongering tactics. He legitimized, in the eyes of the people, the segregation, the branding of Jews that then led to the concentration camp. I said, it's going to happen again. I don't know who's going to be the victim on the other side. It could be Muslims, it could be blacks, it could be Jews, it could be LGBTQ. I don't know who's going to be on the other side, but this is going to happen unless you really get out of your houses right now and your silos where you're constantly talking to your same people. Those echo chambers are people who agree with you. I don't care who agrees with you that racism is wrong. I don't care who agrees with you that the Holocaust was wrong. Go and talk to those who don't agree and allow them to see the human aspect of what wrong is. Because if you don't allow them to use their own senses to draw a conclusion, they're being indoctrinated to believe that the conclusion has already been drawn. So it's happening, and as much time as we take, I just read the article because I wasn't aware of what you talked about, this 4 hour thing, and I read quickly the resolution was passed. Are you serious that we have to sit down and pass a resolution to say something is wrong? Like, are we going to have a resolution tomorrow to actually say that killing someone is wrong? It's a by default human morals and ethics. You know something is wrong, but the thing is that line has been blurred, and the blurring of that line will ultimately leave will take us to having no line, no boundaries, no limits. Say what you want, do what you want. Remember one thing in Islam, and we're going to loop this back because this is raw Islam. We consider this to be injustice. And injustice has the greatest punishment tomorrow. الظلم ظلمات يوم القيامة. Transgression is darkness on the day of judgment. Allah does not guide the transgressors. Allah is not with the transgressors. Allah doesn't like the transgressors. And nor do the transgressors love God and the message of oneness. Here in America, we have so many diverse communities and cultures, religions and sects of religions. Beautiful messages are being preached from the pulpits and the podiums and the mimbers and and from the altars. Where is that message in the lives of the people who are preaching and those who are being preached? Where is that message in the communities that consider themselves to be in the Bible Belt or in a strong knit Muslim community? Where is that message in a Jewish community center, a Muslim community center, a Christian community center, where if Jesus, Moses, or Muhammad, peace be upon all of them, were to come right now, that they would say, you know what? You're doing the right thing. You're doing what we were doing. Moses, peace be upon him, stood up to the injustices of a tyrant king by telling him what? You're not God. God is God. And if you understand that God has limits set for you and that you live within those limits by not claiming divinity and not exposing your tyranny on the people, it's good for you. He never badmouthed them. Rather, Allah said to him in the Quran, go to Pharaoh. He has gone way off, basically. إِنَّهُ طَغَى. He's gone off by the wayside. فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Speak to him kindly. Be nice. Because there's no conversation in America that's going to change America with roughness, with profanity, with rudeness, with vulgar language, and with putting others down. It's not going to change. Let's start talking nicely to those on the other side or outside of our silos, even though they may not welcome or receive your kindness in the initial part. Maybe they may not receive you at all, but there's a chance that you will leave an impression on them that will make them question why you are so nice, why you are so caring and considerate, especially at a time when they were adamant to tear you apart metaphorically. And I'll say one more thing here, Carl. America's hurting because every American is hurting. People hate each other because they hate themselves. People want others out because they can't find a place in. This is what we call ripple effect. It's a domino effect. Families are broken because people are broken. Communities are broken because families are broken. A state is broken because every community within every city is broken. A nation is broken because every state in that nation is broken. It's a ripple domino effect. Back to you, Carl.
So before I continue with housekeeping, because I'm really angry by this, and I'm glad you read up, and I'm glad I saw that little spark of anger in you. So, welcome to the dark side, Luke. But no, I just because I am playing it in the background here, and 187. There it is again. 187 people said telling someone who's not European to go back where you came from isn't racist. And that angers me above that's not okay. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the comment section. And of course, our super fan, Sister Layla.
Assalamualaikum, Sister Layla. Hope you're enjoying your time with your family, alhamdulillah. Following you on Facebook, alhamdulillah. I look forward to seeing all of you in September, inshallah.
Inshallah. She says, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah barakatuh. I am not surprised by the comments. Since the beginning of his presidency, he has been making racist comments. That is true. That was me. I was saying that she's right. It's really sad that it's coming from our supposed country leader. And honestly, Layla, that is what bugs me, because, growing up, I grew up in a time when Ronald Reagan was the president, and it meant something, and Reagan stood tall. And I'm not saying he was, spick and span. And yeah, there were issues, the Iran-Contra scandals, blah, 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 blah. But he was a leader. Obama was a leader. Clinton was a leader. Weird, and did a lot of things that were super weird, but a leader. This just feels like some troll with a Twitter account that just pisses everybody off. And in fact, I was thinking about it the other day. He really is alienating all of our allies that we've had since World War I, and making friends with people that have been our enemies since World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the logic with that? And before I pass it back for the final thoughts, Sister Layla had a response for you. She said, yes, she is enjoying her time. Alhamdulillah. And then she said, thank you.
Welcome, Sister Layla. Let me just say this, everyone, tonight. I know there's a lot to consume here. 187 people said it's not racist. Kellyanne Conway asked a reporter,
we are not even going down that rabbit hole.
what's your ethnicity? Guys, It's happening. It's happening. Everyone who's not white or Caucasian is not American. It's coming. But let me say one thing. If you can walk out of your house tonight or tomorrow morning, whenever you go to your shift to work, you can go to your neighborhood party this weekend, or you can go play with your friends basketball tomorrow night, whatever you're doing. And if you can convince 187 people that we are inclusive and we are whole, we are better together, and we are one nation regardless of the color of our skin, you have the real votes. You have the real people. You have the real hope in America happening on the ground. Unfortunately, we can't really say outside, of course, the legal bounds, but our country isn't being represented right now up in Washington. They're being represented as representatives who've been elected. That's fine, but they're not representing what America means. So before we talk about going to vote or getting involved in politics and making sure everyone registers to vote, let's galvanize our neighborhoods to be loving and caring. Because I'll say one thing, and I'll end with this. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I'll say this. Trump is powerful. Trump is smart in what he's doing, and he is working purposefully towards what the goal is. And I say this because nothing has been able to stop him. Rather, people like Lindsey Graham have become little puppy dogs in front of him, and they're just following whatever he says. Um, he could, as he said, he could walk onto Fifth Street and kill someone and still be elected president. Unfortunately, there is some credibility to how far he's gotten that no previous president could have survived that thing. So you have to accept, only because then you will prepare yourself. I remember Orlando Magic, bad team a few seasons ago. Home game against Golden State Warriors, kind of on the prime that time. Orlando Magic whooped them big time. You know why? Because they accepted that the team that's coming up is big, it's strong, and they went out with more strength. So don't give power to the words of this man by retweeting or discussing it. Ignore it. He will ultimately go speak in his silo. Right now, his voices are echoing in everyone's silo, and we are causing that echo effect. Let him speak in his silo. That silo always existed in America. It always existed in Europe. It always existed in our world. So just accept it. But let him speak in his silo. We speak louder in ours. And we make our silos the collective silo, the collective voice. Number two, remember, nothing is a mistake. Everything is purpose driven towards a goal. When you know the tactic of your opponent, when you know the tactic of your opponent on the court, like Federer, how he lost after that gruesome 13-12 deuce loss, in that final set, he was tired. The thing was, the guy who beat him, I don't know how to say his name, John Janovic or something, I don't know his name, the guy from Russia.
So you are not asking me about sports, are you? I
I'm
don't.
asking about tennis.
Yeah,
Wimbledon
no,
final happened two
sorry.
days ago. Okay, but I'll tell you one thing. He had determination over Federer, and Federer is a good player. We know that, and so is the other guy. So the point is, guys, work strategically, work smart. Stop talking about what's being said and start saying what needs to be done. If that makes sense to you, that's the message tonight. Racist comments have always been uttered. Racist comments will continue to be uttered. Violence through racism has always been perpetrated, and if you don't stop the racist comments, violence through racism will be perpetrated more commonly in our world than what you know it to be today. So we pray that Allah, the Lord Almighty, God Almighty, protects everyone, unites our hearts, sees us all as one people, sees our world as one people, so that we can work together, not work against each other. That He unites us despite our differences, and allows us to see our differences as not differences that make a line in the sand, but just as another plank on the bridge that makes us go further together. Amen. Thank you so much. Carl?
Mean. Before I do our final closing housekeeping remarks, there is one comment here, and it's from Sunshine, L Sunshine. I'm gonna have to ask. I'm pretty sure I know who this is now, but she says, or they said, 187 people. A 187 is code for homicide for the police call. And she said that's what they're trying to do, is kill our peace of mind, one racist action at a time.
That's deep. That is
Isn't
deep.
it deep, though?
That's deep.
That's very deep. And Sunshine, yeah, that's exactly how I thought it was. Thank you for joining us again this evening. I did see that you are back in the boot again. That cannot be fun, especially in the large heat wave that we're having. Just for Imam Azhar's sake, and of course all of the internet now. She damaged her Achilles tendon, and she is having to walk around in a plastic boot in 100-degree weather and 100-degree humidity, and she uses the bus to get to work at early hours. So
May the Lord grant her strength and health and protect her. I know it's gruesome weather here today also. It hit past 100. So I could just imagine how it is up there. Stay safe, everyone. Stay safe.
oh, she's in the boot until 7:30. So not 7:30, but July 30th.
Hopefully when the boot comes off, a stronger leg, stronger limbs, and healthier life.
Inshallah, God willing.
Inshallah.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of episode number 90 of Raw Islam with Imam Azhar. She just said thank you, by the way. So if you have not caught up on all the back episodes, head over to VennNetwork.org, where you can find all of our episodes and all of our wonderful podcasts over there. And while you're on the website, make sure you click on the swag tag to get yourself some gear, some VennNetwork gear that will go to help to support the network, support the hosts, and help us reach a larger audience. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, VennNetwork, VennNetwork. Make sure you share our stuff so that we can, again, spread the message. The more votes we get for these polls on Mondays, the more interactive people will be in the conversation, because this is your show. We're here for you. So until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will say...